My name is Vernon Huey. This is a session around experience management solutions for SAP developers. Our intent in this presentation is to actually walk you through a little bit about Qualtrics and the Qualtrics developer platform, to go a little bit more underneath the covers to show you some compelling use cases. I'll be co-presenting with someone on my team, Evan Child. Here's a couple disclaimers. Like I said, our topic is really around what is Qualtrics and experience management. So we'll share that, and then we'll also talk a bit about the Qualtrics developer platform, specifically focusing in on our Actions workflow platform and our APIs, and then we'll conclude that with a bit of a demo. But first, what is Qualtrics? So this is something that if you visit any of our offices, you'll actually see this on our walls. This is our culture and our mission statement. You know, we transform customers into fans, products into obsessions, employees into ambassadors, and brands into icons. This is what we do. How do we do that? Well, we do that by really focusing on experience data. Experience data tells you why things are happening. And it actually happens across multiple different pillars, ranging from experience to brand, employee experience, product experience. Think about all the different types of experiences that and products that you might use, ranging from coffee to flights. You know, example off the top of my head is my phone. Most of us probably are using one of the two predominant phone providers today. And how many apps do you actually launch off of your phone? Each of those apps provide a different experience that actually links you with that ecosystem and that product. So these are really the vital signs for any organization, is to really understand what your customers think, what your employees think, brand and product as well. In fact, when we talk to a lot of SAP folks, especially initially after acquisition, you know, this is probably something that you've seen if you were at SAP Sapphire or at other SAP conferences before. SAP runs 77% of the world's transactions. Well, when you combine these transactions, this O data, with all the touch points across Qualtrics and Nextdata, that's where we can really gain very material insights around product, customer, employee, or brand experience and behaviors. Fusing these together is really vital to bringing the experience economy together. So the challenge, though, is really how do you get the right feedback? So when you look across X and O data, oftentimes the challenge, particularly around O data, is you can actually stand up lots of different listening posts, ranging from chat to CRM, text messaging, in-store perspectives, transactions that you get off of receipts and things like that. But what does that really tell you? That data is probably not centralized, it's not linked together, it's not personalized, it's not holistic. And most importantly, it's probably not actionable. In fact, 80% of CEOs, and you guys heard a little bit about this in the keynote, 80% of CEOs in leadership believe that they're delivering a superior experience when really only 8% of their customers actually agree. So to us, the most open ecosystem will really win XM. Qualtrics is really the fabric that ties O and X data together and really ties what we think of the SaaS platforms and ecosystems together to create compelling end-to-end use cases. So a lot about XM. Let me tell you a little bit about our team and what we stand for. So at Qualtrics, I've been at Qualtrics for just over a year now, and I represent two of our engineering teams. First is our engineering services team, which is a delivery team focused on working with clients to build custom engineering builds to solve their unique use cases. The other is really our developer platform and ecosystems team, which is really targeted around building APIs and enabling our partners and developers like yourself to really succeed using the Qualtrics platform. Our mission is really to enable a world-class partner ecosystem that brings experience management and innovation to our shared customers. This is really the same mission statement. One of our internal leadership values is around transparency. This is the same mission statement that we actually share with our own team internally. How do we go about doing this? We really focus on 4 key tenets. First, we target all developers. This ranges from power users to system integrators, all the way through to IT developers and ISV vendors, right? Secondly, we lead with an API-first mentality. This API-first mentality is not only the fabric and the public API surface area that we actually share with you, our developers, but we actually go back and actually work with each of the internal teams to ensure that they're actually promoting API-first mentality through their platforms so that we can actually surface them to you guys as well. And finally, because of the open ecosystem, we really think about open means open, where we meet the client where they are. We'll work with them across multiple different SaaS platforms using APIs and whatnot. And finally, one of the key mantras is not just to empower partners and enable the ecosystem, but I work with my team to really think about the win-win-win. We win when our partners and our clients win. So what is the Qualtrics developer platform? John talked about this in the keynote a little bit, but it spans from the XM build, which is really out-of-box configuration and in-product capabilities that allow system integrators and power users to configure the platform. XM Create, which allows IT developers and developers like yourself to call our APIs, RESTful HTTP endpoints, to either get or set data against the Qualtrics platform. And XM Extend, which allows ISV vendors to leverage SDKs to extend the capabilities of our platform through integrations and other reusable components. So hopefully this was a good overview of both Qualtrics as well as where we're going with the developer platform. With that said, I'm going to welcome Evan Child on my team to dive a little bit deeper into Actions platform and our APIs.
Thanks, Vern. All right, I'm excited. Wow, that's nice and loud. I'm excited to be here today. Really appreciate you sharing your time with me. I've been with Qualtrics for a little over 3 years. My background is in software development. I'm a manager. I look over and run our public API teams, the Actions platform, as well as a new platform we're making for data ingest and egress called Client Data Automations Platform. And so really excited for the chance to be here to share some things with you about our Actions platform. But first I want to talk briefly about where we are and how Qualtrics and the Actions platform and the APIs kind of fit into the broader SAP ecosystem. So we enable these in-product integrations and extensions. We've talked a little bit about the various different ways that you can build within SAP, and Qualtrics is additive to that. There are the other mechanisms of doing these sort of workflow components within the SAP ecosystem, including CPI and Extension Factory. But imagine there's an event that gets created, like an order happens, or a flight is taken, or a purchase is made. Something like that occurs. And then you have this eventing mechanism and these interfaces that can receive those events and then action them, right? So, for example, we've got here Actions Platform, the Qualtrics REST APIs, Extension Factory, and then CPI as well. And so when you're looking at this, you see that there's a variety of different tasks that can occur as a result of these actions. So this is a pretty powerful paradigm when you think about an eventing model for modeling your workflows, because then you can trigger all sorts of different tasks that need to occur following the key business events. So Actions Platform, as I mentioned, is something that Qualtrics has created. It's a simple 1, 2, 3 process. An event, I'll go into this in more detail a little bit later, but events, conditionals, and then the tasks that they're driving. The Qualtrics REST APIs, which is just like it sounds, it's a standard set of APIs. It's pretty extensive. There's quite a bit out there. We're adding new things all the time to this, and excited for the way that people are building on that. Have a lot of use cases where people are leveraging the public APIs that we have to create really compelling business scenarios. We'll talk about that. And then obviously you've got Extension Factory. So integrations catalog. Let me talk about this in the context of the Actions platform. What you see here is a whole lot of different name brands that we have created, that we have integrated with one way or another. Now, I don't mean to imply that all of these are first-class citizens, so to speak. Not all of these pop up in our platform as easy to, one-click out-of-the-box integrations. But they're things that we have created integrations for using web service elements or other mechanisms with the Qualtrics platform. And so it's incredibly flexible and very powerful to see that you've got a large variety of different SaaS platforms that you can integrate with. So here are the first-class citizens, as I mentioned here. You can see a large variety here, email tasks. We've got Marketo on there, Facebook Messenger, some examples of things that we can do today in integrating the Actions platform. So we've also got, I mentioned earlier, the public API interfaces. And just to talk about this a little bit, here's where it fits in the broader ecosystem there. If you go to api.qualtrics.com, you'll find there a wealth of different tutorials SDK, reference guides, documentation, use cases for which you can use the Qualtrics platform if you're a developer. So far we've talked about a couple of different use cases. We've got power users that are primarily for the Actions platform. Then you've got developers, two different sets of users, and the APIs will be what developers would intend to use. We're not going to talk about each of these, but very quick, high-level overview of the different types of things that you can do through the public APIs. We are an API-first company, which means we think deliberately when we're designing a new feature about the fact that developers are going to want to get access to this as well, and so you'll find that there's quite a bit of functionality in these interfaces. This is a brief summary of some of the most common use cases. Here are some of the critical entities that exist within the Qualtrics system. So a survey, which is, as you would expect, a series of questions. There might be a workflow in there. You can have conditional logic around whether or not you display one question or the next. A contact is the person that is invited to take that survey. A transaction is a really interesting data component. It represents something that occurs, so every flight that you take, every time that you ride in a ride-sharing car, every time that you purchase something at a Starbucks, that represents a transaction. So you can have multiple transactions linked to a single contact to start building a story around what this particular individual does on an ongoing basis. Mailing lists, distributions, and invitations are functional constructs in order to keep track of who we send invitations to and when they go out. A response is when we collect something. Dashboard is how we display things. Nothing too rocket science-y in most of this stuff here. But what we're going to talk about today is a little bit more around actions and tickets. So we'll get into that in just a second. So for the demo that I'm going to talk about in the use case, the key elements from this entity relationship diagram we're going to talk about are a survey, an invitation, a response, an action, and a ticket. And those are the key elements. So keep those in mind as we go through this. So a few months ago, I hopped in a rideshare. It was early in the morning. I was going from my home in Provo up to the Salt Lake airport. I was heading out on a business trip, and called my rideshare through the app. Came and picked me up. We got going. We got about halfway to the airport. I'm kind of just tucked into the back seat, reading email or whatever. It's early in the morning, like 5:30, I think. And all of a sudden, the car swerves. And I thought, okay. I looked up. I looked at the driver. He didn't say anything. I just figured, okay, maybe he was trying to get around a pothole or something. There's always construction going on in Utah and Salt Lake, so whatever. And then it happened again. And I looked up again, and what's going on here? When it happened the third time, I realized my driver is literally falling asleep at the wheel. I'm driving on the freeway, and this guy is about to take a snooze. So I strike up a conversation with him. I ask him how his mom is. We go through, everything to try and keep this guy awake. We're on the freeway. We can't get off really easily. We're in the carpool lane. Plus, I have to make my flight. I mean, better to die or to get out of the car and miss my flight than to die. I realize that, but we went ahead and he stayed awake fine after that. We got to the airport safely and everything was okay. But at that point, I jumped on the app, and it always pops up, asking you to give feedback for your ride. And I'm like 1 star, and I typed in my driver was falling asleep, and you need to do something about this right away. So literally within 5 minutes, before I even made it through security at the airport, they got back to me and said, thank you for your feedback. We refunded your money, and we've temporarily disabled the driver's app so we can investigate. And I was impressed. That level of real-time feedback and taking action is really what constitutes the power of a system like Qualtrics. And what I'm going to demo today is specifically those steps and how you can implement something like that within the Qualtrics platform. So I'm going to do something now that it's an engineer's least favorite, most scary words. We're going to attempt to do a live demo here. So bear with me as we go through this. And I'm probably logged out, so I'll probably have to log in again here. All right, we're good. Great. The 6 steps that we're going to do are these right here. We're going to send the rider a follow-up survey. So once the system has recognized, okay, rides completed. We're then going to send the rider, import their contact information, and send them a follow-up survey. After that, if they respond and they've indicated some kind of a concern, such as a safety concern, we'll create a ticket within the Qualtrics system based on that, but only if they've indicated some kind of a safety concern, so that we don't get a ticket for every single response. Because this is critical, we're going to leverage one of the integrations that we have, that of pinging a Slack channel for a team to follow up immediately, because this is a high priority ticket and something they need to look into right away. Once they've reviewed that ticket, they're going to have the opportunity to say, okay, let's close this ticket, let's refund the money, let's notify the user, close the loop with the customer, and then disable the driver's app while we do additional investigation. All right, so we're going to implement each one of those scenarios as part of our demo here. Okay, here we go. So first of all, we're going to create, we're actually going to do this through the APIs first. So in the APIs, the public APIs, I've just got Postman up here. It's just a developer utility. Maybe some of you have used something like this in the past. Developer utility to be able to call RESTful endpoints. So we're going to first follow these steps right here. We'll create a mailing list, create a transaction batch, import the contact with those transactions, and then we'll actually schedule that transaction batch. So it's a pretty straightforward process. And I have this all set up, and I'm not going to bore you by walking through every parameter of every API call, as scintillating as that might be. We'll just take the IDs from these and carry them along, and I'll talk to each step here. So first of all, we created a mailing list. We called it Rebel Contacts 5, and then we're coming over here, and we've got a call to make a transaction batch. A transaction batch is essentially just a grouping of transactions. So let's say, for example, I'm the Rideshare company, and 5 people have completed a ride in the last minute. I'll go ahead and call one of these transaction batches with information about each one of those contacts for that transaction batch. So here I've created my transaction batch. I'll copy the ID. We move along here to importing the contacts with their transactions. So up here, I'll put my new transaction batch ID in. You can see that I've got my list of contacts here. So I'm the writer, Evan Child. I've got my email in there, who the driver was, and what their driver ID is, and a variety of different other data values in there in order to get there. But now I go ahead and create this, imported the contacts with their respective transactions. It's an asynchronous call, and so it gives me a progress ID, which I can check, but this will finish right away. And so from here, I'll come over, and I've already set all this up so that I've got all the information in here. I'll just put the new transaction batch ID in. I can schedule it. You can see that I've indicated which survey I'm going to send to the individuals. I've got when it expires, what the link type is, the from email and from name, and on, lots of different parameters there. And with that, I've now taken that, imported the contact, scheduled the distribution for them to be able to receive this survey. Make sense? Now I'm going to do the same thing, essentially the same thing, the same import of contacts information, but now I'm going to do it using the Actions platform so you can see what that looks like. The Actions platform, I think, as Vern mentioned earlier, is our no-code, it's our power user interface for performing a lot of these functions. And so here I've got it. I'm going to import the contact and schedule the distribution. So the first thing that I'm going to use here is what we call the JSON event. This effectively is a mechanism for you to create a web service for receiving data in JSON format inside of the Qualtrics platform. The powerful thing about this is that nobody's writing any code to do this. You might have to write some code to call it, depending on what your integration is, but within the Qualtrics platform, you don't have to write any code to get this web service stood up where you can receive this data. So it's a pretty powerful paradigm here. And we have here a way to easily model the data so that you're even not having to do a lot of manual data entry to model what's in here. So you'll see that I've called this capture event, and it'll show all of this data that we have right here, name, email, driver information, etc. And that has been captured right here. So it makes developing these extremely quick. You don't have to manually type in, here are all the parameters that I'm going to use. Instead, simply capture it and you've got it there. And those are now available to use elsewhere within this particular action. So now I'll come in here and I'll add a task. And what I want to do is distribute a survey. So for the contact that gets imported, I'm going to distribute this survey. We'll fill out some of the information here. You'll notice we can send via email or via SMS. We'll pipe in the email right here so that they know that's the person we're sending to. We'll use one of our mailing lists that we already created, map a little bit of data in here. We'll choose which survey we're going to distribute to them. And then here's the message that we're going to send to them. Please tell us about your ride. All right. Save that. And now, when that endpoint gets called, when the ride gets finished and they make a call into the Qualtrics platform to this JSON event action, it will import their information into the platform and schedule the distribution of the survey, which will go out immediately. Now, the next thing that we want to make sure that we can do is that we have the ability to detect when the writer, once they've answered the survey, has indicated any kind of a safety concern. So if they're saying, hey, my driver was falling asleep, you need to take action on this. So we're going to detect safety concern and ping team. And I'm just calling these actions whatever, giving them whatever name, my descriptive name I think is helpful. So first of all, this is going to be when the writer completes a survey. So it's going to be on a survey response. The conditions are, if they answer the safety question, did you have any safety concerns? In the affirmative, then that's going to be the condition on which I choose to create a ticket. And so the next item that I have here is on my tasks, the list of items that I'm going to do is create a ticket so that somebody tracks this and can follow up. Obviously, this is something that requires very high priority. Safety concern. We'll automatically assign it to a user. And we could add some data in there for time. I won't add that in, but the safety concern could have been wet weather. These are options for root cause. Drowsy driver is one potential root cause, and then unsafe vehicle might be another. And so we're going to ask the person who looks at the ticket to indicate which of these items contributed to the unsafe concern, the safety concern, if you will. So we'll do that. And because this is a super high priority ticket, we're going to go ahead and automatically use our integration that we have here to ping a Slack channel and tell the team, hey, go look at this. Now, I've already set this up before, so I won't go through all the details of this, but I'm just going to put the channel name here, and please look at this ticket immediately. Fix my spelling errors. And then I can also pipe in the link that we have there. So now we've got a link to the ticket. They can click it right from the Slack channel and take care of this right away. So now we've done two things. We've imported the contact, sent them a survey. We've now detected when that survey indicated that there was a safety concern. And finally, we're going to close the loop with the customer and refund their money and shut down the driver's app. All right, so that's going to be our last action. So once the team member has gone in and indicated that, yes, this is a concern, let's go ahead and take those steps, we're going to notify the customer and shut down the driver. So this is going to be, we're going to model this on a ticket event change. So when somebody comes in and indicates that there's been a status change on the ticket, so that's my firing event here. I'm going to add a condition here that says if the root cause, if the individual indicated the root cause to be drowsy driver, then I will go ahead and do those items that I just mentioned. We're going to send the user an email. Okay, real-time feedback. Thanks for your feedback is the subject line. Thank you for your feedback. We have refunded your money and disabled the driver. So now we've notified the customer. Now we're going to add a couple of tasks for disabling the driver and refunding the money. So actually executing back on the host company system these functions. So I've got this task here called web service that allows me to put in my fictional ride-sharing company, myrideshare.com/disabled driver. And then I'll do something similar, myrideshare.com refund money. Now I've done each of those separate tasks that we talked about. We imported the contact distributed, we detected when there was a safety concern and created a ticket, and finally we closed the loop with the customer and refunded their money and disabled the driver. So, bouncing back over to here, I think that concludes our demo. Vern, back to you.
Journeys and things like that. But I think the more interesting thing is I just wanted to give you guys a chance if you guys had any questions. Evan and I are happy to help answer anything. The question, sorry, I didn't hear the question.
So it was the question that if you're a partner and you want to put your own questions inside of the survey, kind of depending on what type of integration you want. The surveys themselves are, I didn't demo the survey editing capability, but they're very customizable. You're able to both use our standard question types or create a custom question. We create quite a few custom question types that end up acting as plugins inside of the survey flow editor. So you can integrate in a variety of different ways. Yeah?
Can you programmatically create the survey then?
Go for it.
Yes. I wouldn't call it a super highly supported mechanism, but the survey is basically a JSON blob, if you will, that has all the questions and the survey flow and all of that. And we have had customers who have integrated like that to programmatically design and create surveys.
So just a quick follow-up then on that workflow. When I make the call to Qualtrics to get, let's say, some of the standard survey questions, and then when I inject my own into there, and then do a repost back to Qualtrics.
Precisely, yes. And those APIs exist today in our public interfaces.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for attending. Hopefully this was a good flyby as well as a bit of a deep dive into a end-to-end closed loop use case using Qualtrics. Thank you very much.